The Nine Horse by Charles Bukowski. I was at the race one day, and I had drunk much beer the night before, and I was late for the first race. I parked, hustled in, and I could feel this beer shit really coming on. Not only coming on, but I had to hold the cheeks of my ass together while walking real fast from the parking lot and through admissions, and toward and into the crapper. Luckily, there was a stall, and I got my pants and shorts down real fast, and then it came, glorious and stinking. When I got up and wiped, I looked down, and there was my wallet afloat in all of it. I dipped in, got it, flushed, got out of the stall, washed up, walked out, then stood in a corner and pulled the bills out of my wallet. They were wet and they stank. I heard the announcer say, "It is now 1 minute to post time." I wanted the Nine Horse. I had this very strong feeling for the Nine Horse. I put the bills back in my wallet, but I didn't put the bills back in my wallet. I didn't know what to do. Then the announcer said, "They're at the gate." I ran around the corner, found a betting window, pulled one of the bills out of my wallet, and hollered, "10 win on the Nine Horse." The seller picked up the bill and looked at it. Come on, I said. "It's just a little wet. What the shit?" The seller looked at me, hit the button, and I had a ticket. I went out and watched the race, and the Nine Horse ran out. Welcome. This is the Chapel of Poetry, and my name is William James Lindberg. And in the Chapel of Poetry, we, you and I, celebrate the word of our fellow human being, that word of the universe that trickles down from the stars above and rains down as syllables to our feet. And these syllables gather into pools upon the earth. And we, as poets, as feelers, we wade through these pools in our bare feet to soak up the syllables. And the syllables, they get into our bloodstream and they swirl around in our chest, forming the beat of our heart. This beat we hear as line music deep inside of our eardrums. Beat. And when we open our mouths to speak, the words come out as poetry. And tonight, in the Chapel of Poetry, we will be celebrating the word of William James Lindberg in his book, Found on Bathroom Walls. It is a collection of poetry that is comprised primarily of found poetry, erasures, cut-ups, and so forth. And what's kind of special about this book is, other than the fact that it was written by me, is that Brandon Pitts, who I covered in the last episode with Nimrod and John 2:13, and those two episodes, he selected all the poems from this book, for this book, out of my collection of poetry. And so, some might ask, why Found on Bathroom Walls, and why does the cover of this book have a toilet on the front of it? Well, the toilet, the bathroom was the bathroom of one of my favorite coffee shops in Seattle called Uncle Elizabeth's, that was, in its later days, was operated by Danny Butler, and Danny and his brother Elliot Butler, and I think if I got their names right, but they as a side note there, Their father was a Nobel Prize winner a few years ago in the field of genetics. And anyways, in their coffee shop, they had painted the bathroom in a very modern art sort of splash art sort of way, and it was just one of the most unique bathrooms I've ever been in. That's the genesis of that picture. But the name found on bathroom walls came to me far, far before that. That title came to me that I wanted a collection of poetry to be called that, because it seemed like just such a great name, because it's a testament to the randomness of poetry and also the accessibility of it, because I believe that poetry is accessible to all people, and it should be accessible, and which is why I like Charles Bukowski's work, is because it is accessible and easy to understand. And in this first season of Chapel of Poetry, we had some other poets who are also extremely easy to understand, like Gene Vayner and Larry Christ, who I'm going to do in the next episode in his book Undertow Overtures. And Gene Vayner, Larry Christ, Anastasia Tolbert, and more easier to understand or less obscure. I think some of my poetry is kind of obscure too, but not as obscure as Mac Frary's or Brandon Pitts' work can be. Not all of his work is obscure, but some of it was obscure. Anyways, I know that doesn't really answer the question, but that's the best answer I have right now. So I'm going to start with a poem that was sourced out of Twitter, and there was 2 lines from some guy by the name of @PartyJack, and I took 2 lines, and then I formed the rest of this into a form of a pontoon. And after the first time I read it, I retitled it to this current title, which is called Poem Unknowingly Read Before a Ladies' Prayer Group at an Open Mic in Everett, Washington. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Oh, yes, fuck. Long division and fucking. Danny Boy's good at only 2 things. Danny Boy's good at dividing them nuts. Long division and fucking. Lily Long's there sucking that dong. Danny Boy's good at dividing them nuts. Larry, where's your hut? Lily Long's there sucking that dong. Your long-ass balls are hanging. And Larry, where's your hut? Long balls, Larry, long balls, yes. Your long-ass balls are hanging. Your balls are banging and clanging. Long balls, Larry, long balls, yes. Danny Boy's there dividing them butts. Your balls are banging and clanging, and Danny Boy's good at only 2 things. Danny Boy's there dividing them butts. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Oh, yes, fuck. These are my words now. These are my words now. My heart swoons, sexy, ugly, Tweety, which I oppose. What do they tell? Sue me, it's hilarious. Undying, guilty American pleasure, or is it rather a symptom of the time that we live in? Like, how do I get more than 6 things in here, including bike, skis, tent, sleeping bag, camp stove? Someone just told me this sounds ADD. Explosions in the Sky. Source from Seattle City Arts, August 2011. I was in a bar with some friends. Under fluorescent lights, sawtooth leaves tickle your cheeks. The fringe pushes in as you lean head first into a dense tangle of vines. It's warm and tastes like sweetness and musk like summer. You pop it straight into your mouth. Love poem attempt 4. Spring cleaning the steam room. Special moments brought showers, flowers, and itchy skin. $2 tips on living in your crap and faith. Bukowski wouldn't like it. The rumors about your potential are true. You could be peer for those who care. Just jump into a puddle of wonderful, mysterious chaos. The attendant at Rexall Drug spoke in shivering whispers. He screamed obscenities behind the dark room door. He said, "The rumors about your potential are true. They hang like fortune cookies from bright, luminous trees. Braveness is more than the absence of cowardice in a fight. Jump into a puddle of wonderful, mysterious chaos, or dip a finger into a doubted dark pool of malice." He said, "Iron John is a thirsty fish in a pool of holy water." He said, "The rumors about your potential are true. Adore the puddle of wonderfulness in your illumination. Compose poems that stick in your mind like wet beer shits." He jumped into a puddle of wonderful, mysterious chaos. He was the main character of your novel. He stepped across a chasm in the twilight dim. The rumors he heard about your potential are true. Just jump into that puddle of wonderful, mysterious chaos. And a love poem, attempt number 7. Will she groan out my name when it is my turn to fill her? I rhythmically ejaculate a word with a form that lacks any discernible meaning. Through plaster lath walls, the girl next door screams, harder, faster, slower. I open my ears. I dream alone. I will finish with this poem from I Anonymous in The Stranger, sourced from there. I stand on the cliff looking down into the abyss. Can I avoid jumping? That horrible place is released. The worst part is that the anger will destroy me. My relationship sickens me. I have fallen. And I'm going to say one thing about one of the poems, and then I'm going to close this out completely for the night. And the Bukowski Wouldn't Like It poem. And that is a villanella. And the reason Bukowski wouldn't like it is because he spoke a lot, and I've listened to in his books and in many of it about Bukowski books that I've read, is that he felt that if a poet started writing in forms, then it was all over for him, that they had lost that connection to the universe, that connection where the poems could be written, where stories and imagination and creativity came into being. But I disagree, because I think that forms are a way to unleash that creativity, but that's why I wrote that poem, or why I titled it that way. And the first one I read was a pontoon poem unknowingly read before a ladies' prayer group at an open mic in Everett, Washington. And I titled it that because actually I was only planning on reading that poem once, but when I read it in front of this ladies' prayer group and the reactions I got from them is why it became a keeper for me, and also the Larry in that is not the Larry of my friend Larry Christ, although he sometimes thinks that, but that's never that. That was just that name that I pulled off of Twitter. Long balls, Larry Long Balls, yes, that was, I think, one of the Twitter tweets that I used. And it's formed into a pontoon. And what I like about that poem is the symmetry of it and how it just comes full circle. And also that it doesn't really sound like it's a pontoon. And that's, I think, is what makes the mark of a good form poem is one that when you, in the hearing of it, you don't know that you just been fed a form poem. And I'm going to finish this evening Chapel of Poetry out with one more Charles Bukowski poem called The House. And what I liked about this poem is that it kind of reminds me of found poetry in that there's the framework of the house, and that then you fill in the gaps, and as the house is built, first it's just the ribs, and then the whole thing is built. But in a lot of eraser type poetries, there are just sort of, they're in fragments. There are a montage of images, and of course this is just poetry in general, and then as you read through it, the mind fills in the blanks. The mind builds the rest of the house. Even though it's just a bare bones structure, the mind creates the whole thing. And that is one of the things I love about poetry. The House by Charles Bukowski. They are building a house half a block down, and I sit up here with the shades down, listening to the sounds, the hammers pounding in nails, thwack, 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 thwack. And then I hear the birds and the thwack, thwack, and I go to bed. I pull the covers to my throat. They have been building this house for a month, and soon it will have its people sleeping, eating, loving, and moving around. But somehow now it is not right. There seems a madness. Men walk on top with nails in their mouths, and I read about Castro and Cuba. And at night I walk by, and the ribs of the house show, and inside I can see cats walking the way cats walk, and then a boy rides by on a bicycle, and still the house is not done. And in the morning the men will be back walking around the house with their hammers, and it seems people should not build houses anymore. It seems people should not get married anymore. It seems people should stop working and sit in small rooms on second floors under electric lights without shades. It seems there is a lot to forget and a lot not to do, and in drugstores, markets, bars, the people are tired. They do not want to move, and I stand there at night and look through this house, and the house does not want to be built. Though through its sides I can see the purple hills and the first lights of evening, and it is cold, and I button my coat, and I stand there looking through the house, and the cats stop and look at me until I am embarrassed and move north up the sidewalk, where I will buy cigarettes and beer and return to my room.